Maybe our world is violently spinning out of control, and those of us with faith in God are just the last ones to get the memo. Maybe there really is no one in charge. Maybe we are like kids in the back of a car careening down the highway with no one at the wheel, frustrated at all the swerving, but confidently telling ourselves that someone must really be up there. How could there not be? Maybe April 16th, 2007 is and should be the final nail in a coffin full of them already. The final example of a God who either doesn't exist or is so impotent at his job, he's hardly worth following. God and I go back and forth about a lot of things. I am both awed by his power that so often surprises me and frustrated when that power isn't used the way I think it should be. I look at the world around me and very often wish God would step into the game in a more noticeable way. And I am sure I'm not the only one. The really sticky issues for me have always dealt with why a God who claims to be capable, loving, and aware could allow such suffering to occur for so long. Why God seems to make it so difficult to connect with him at times, to hear his voice when I feel justified and am asking for that. Why he would do things like place a gigantic tempter of a tree in the direct proximity of Adam and Eve and expect them to just leave it alone. And above all else, where in the world is he when things go horribly wrong? When I look at my life and the job I have been entrusted to do, I know that if I were as seemingly unconcerned with what I am responsible for, I would have a problem. Were I to approach my job the way it sometimes seems God approaches his, if I were as tough to get in touch with, as tough to predict, well, at some point, I would be doing some serious job hunting. In light of everything going on in our world today, the question begs to be asked, should God be fired? There are times when I think I would use God's power differently if I were in his metaphorical shoes. That issue made it tough for me to start a relationship with God through Jesus. I felt, if I disagree with how he's handling the planet, do I really want to spend time pursuing him? I also had a really hard time when I saw Christians. I almost never saw anyone demonstrate a life I would want. I usually saw a bunch of angry male chauvinists who always seemed to be against things that I was for. If they weren't yelling, they seemed to be asking for my money. Some college friends and I even made up a drinking game. We would watch televangelists and have a drink every time they asked for a donation. That led to quite a few hangovers. Neither type of Christian really made me want to follow their example. But eventually, I was drawn in by the teachings of Jesus. I felt he had something new to teach me. He is the reason I have tried to come to terms, to the extent I have, with these tough issues. I want to know and understand Jesus more. You may be like many of my friends who are educated, informed about what is happening around the globe, and spiritually intrigued. And like many of my friends, you might feel that a connection with the God of the Bible isn't the most useful way to spend your time. If that sounds at all like you, I think this book could help. Others of you are like me, followers of Jesus who still have issues with God. You are also informed and frustrated with the amount of suffering that God hasn't alleviated, even though you're grateful for the good he has done. And if you are like me, you might also have some issues muddying the water a bit. Concepts as profound and defining as these, undeserved suffering and loss, often bring up other less important issues, such as a general mistrust of people, cynicism, and doubt, which can add confusion to a process that already has plenty of its own. For you, I hope to shape some of the discussion in a new way. Difficult questions about God's job performance come at us in the midst of lives that are raging at full speed, and I believe God would honestly like to interact with us about them. No spinning, but no easy answers either.